Art Deco architecture and higher consciousness levels. These are some of the things your grandfathers and grandmothers built 100 years ago, between around 1910 and 1935. Some of this architecture is called Art Deco, but what it really is a showcase of optimism, enthusiasm, creative energy, and strength. Power, the power to do, the power to build. The people who built like this believed they were going somewhere and deserved beautiful surroundings. They showcase love of detail, craftsmanship, love of rich materials and intense colors. There's nothing bland about any of this. There's an enjoyment of luxury and the belief in human potential and progress. This is the architecture and design of a higher level of consciousness than in later decades. That's right. In the 1920s, we were collectively at a higher consciousness level than we are now. That's why it was called the Roaring Twenties. That means when you go back to the 20s, you're not only going to find superior architecture, but also superior literature, superior engineering, and a lot of other things that are higher quality than they are now. My grandmother bought a fridge in the 1920s that she was still using in the 1990s. Can you imagine that? That's a 80-year-old fridge that she was still using, and nowadays you buy a fridge and it might last for 10 years at most, at best. If something is built by a higher consciousness level, it's built to last, because it's built with integrity and not with the idea of making it something lesser so you can sell more. Then we abruptly and mysteriously stopped building this way. What happened? First, the Great Depression happened, and the news media kept flooding the zone with the idea that we shouldn't be this ostentatious while so many people are out of a job and starving. At around the same time, we have the rise of the twin evils of communism and fascism that are still at it today, by the way. And then finally, World War II, which shut down any collective optimism for a couple of years. World War I had the same effect. The late 1800s saw an incredible drive of inventiveness and human potential until that was stopped by the war. Then in the 1920s, a few years after the war, humans regained their exuberance and were once again at it and once again stopped by World War II. Who knows? how advanced and fantastic our world would look had it not been for the wars. Then, after World War II, in the mid-50s, the economy was again booming and optimism rose once again with the quirky style of the late 50s and 60s. But while many singular nice things have been built since then, the widespread desire for beauty and aesthetics has not been with us since at least 100 years. You need merely look at the architecture to see which consciousness and which consciousness level you're dealing with. Now, I'm not saying we need to go back to Art Deco or that everything about it is perfect. There are some dark aspects to it, and it's a little too grandiose for my personal taste. But it is of a much, much higher quality than what came in the decades after. And the fact that nobody builds like this anymore shows you that whoever is running things these days is not that loving, not that well-intended. And that should actually be a wake-up call, should have been. It should be an indicator that we need to take back our world, that conscious and loving people need to rise and once again become leaders and initiators. So instead of retreating to the woods and doing psychedelics, we need the conscious people to become successful. And we need ethical billionaires in this world. That's what we need the most. Even just looking at the architecture of a higher level of intelligence and emotion has a positive influence on your own consciousness.